Alright, hello everybody, Friendly Red here, back with another report of games on my radar. There's not quite as much to go over here for April as there was for the last 2 months, but that's probably for the best really, as there's only so much time and money we can allot to all these games, and I can say that for myself anyway, I'll still be busy with some of the releases from those last 2 months. Before we get into the discussion proper, as I've been keen to continue to disclaim, please keep in mind that release dates for upcoming games are always subject to change, and what's presented in this video may be out of date by the time it is posted. It's kind of funny how, when I finally started to get consistent in remembering to throw out these disclaimers, the games I discuss in my videos get delayed. We've already seen it happen with one game back in the Red's radar for February, and then 2 games I mentioned in March's video got delays as well, so here's hoping we can get through April without any. Now then, let's get into the games I'm looking forward to for April of 2025. Starting us off on the 8th, we see the release of South of Midnight, the latest endeavor from developer Compulsion Games. So this is a game that I've certainly been interested in, especially after seeing the presentation it got during Xbox's summer showcase last year. I haven't really seen or looked into too much of this game since then, but it looks as though it's come together nicely. It's looking to be a fun and very visually distinct action-adventure game. While the third-person exploration and combat do look promising, I think the setting and visual makeup of this game are the real standouts. Utilizing decimated animation, similar to what we've seen in Hi-Fi Rush or the 2 Spider-Verse films, the way characters move is reminiscent of stop-motion film or puppet work, as the developers describe, and given the game is also going for a more storybook-like approach with its narrative, I think it works well. The somewhat off-putting movements of characters and animations fits well with the bizarre, otherworldly elements and entities that you'll encounter in the game, though I'd be lying if I said that it also sometimes doesn't make the game look a little jank and clunky, and I do wonder how it'll actually hold up in the moment-to-moment gameplay, particularly in combat sections. What looks good in a movie, or in-game cutscene that you're simply just watching, doesn't necessarily translate well over into a fully controllable experience. It feels like there could just be a weird disconnect between fast combat mixed with slower, choppier-looking animations, but I suppose it wasn't really a big issue in Hi-Fi Rush, which was a faster-paced action game that used a similar animation style. Then again, the more anime art style of that game may have just lent itself better to the technique, compared to the more stylized but realistic-ish look South of Midnight is going for. The good news is that, according to the official website for the game, you can disable the stop-motion animations, meaning that if you aren't jiving with how it presents or feels during gameplay, you can remedy it with a simple toggle, and still enjoy the rest of what the game has on offer. Similar to February's After Love EP, South of Midnight's setting is one I feel is rarely given the spotlight in the modern-day gaming scene, and I think it'll really stand out even more because of it, focusing in on the folk tales and mythos of the Deep South. I'll personally be using Game Pass to check this one out, but the game will be cheaper than most new releases, and at only $40, I think this will be an easy get for anyone who's a fan of action-adventure games. Also, as a quick aside, did anyone else realize that the devs of this game are the same ones behind We Happy Few? I did play that game, though I don't remember much of anything about it, but I think it's cool to see them tackle something so different, while also still maintaining a lot of the style and flair that was present in that title. South of Midnight will be releasing on Tuesday, April 8th for Xbox Series consoles and PC. Following South of Midnight, just 2 days later, Pocket Watch Games returns with a sequel that, after all this time, I wasn't ever necessarily expecting, but am very pleased is happening regardless. Monaco 2 is the name of the game, and it is, in fact, the sequel to 2013's Monaco, What's Yours Is Mine. It's been far too long since I've played that original title, but it was an early PC favorite of mine, for a few reasons. The original game was simple to pick up and play, supported co-op for up to 4 players, and had a distinct yet simple art style, looking like what I can only describe as an Atari 2600 game, but if it released during the HD era of gaming, which the first game did. That original game tasked you and up to 3 of your friends to pick your thief of choice and enter one of the many different levels to pull off a successful heist. Of course, utilizing stealth and each thief's unique abilities was vital to a quiet and uneventful job, but there was enough going on in each level, especially when factoring in multiplayer, to keep you on your toes, and properly strategize and improvise if necessary. 12 years on from the original game, Monaco 2 is fast approaching. It's looking to offer up the familiar heist-centric gameplay formula that the original had all those years ago, just with a much upgraded presentation, new thieves to play as, and of course many new shinies and trinkets to steal. I do like that the developers kept the isometric top-down viewpoint for the sequel here, despite going full 3D with the graphics. Though I guess it is at a bit of an angle here in the sequel, whereas the original game was a perfect top-down bird's-eye view, given the 2D visuals. It almost feels like this would have been the perfect opportunity to go for a more traditional third-person camera, but I think keeping it similar to how it was in the OG helps it to retain that Monaco flair, and also keeps it distinct from other heist-centric games like Payday and Payday 2 can't really think of any other heist games, to be honest. I'll also be very curious to see if any of the original characters from the first game return here in the sequel. It'd be cool to see them redesigned for 3D, as you kinda had to fill in the gaps yourself based on their silhouettes and sprite work. All I can say is, if any or all of the heisters from the first game return, I know who I'm maining again. Monaco 2 will be releasing on Thursday, April 10th for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. After Monaco 2, things are a bit quiet on the release front for just a bit over a week, but pick back up on the 18th, with the release of the LUNAR Remastered Collection. Similar to South of Midnight, this is another game I've been interested in after seeing it in a gaming showcase, though instead of an Xbox-centric one, I first caught a glimpse of this game, or games, when they were shown and announced at PlayStation's September 2024 State of Play. As the name would suggest, these aren't new games, but instead are remasters of two Sega Saturn and original PlayStation-era JRPGs, known fully as LUNAR, Silver Star Story, and LUNAR 2, Eternal Blue. I haven't looked too much deeper into these games since seeing the reveal of this collection, but they seem to be well-put-together classical JRPGs, similar to the older Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy games, which I'm sure they drew heavy inspirations from. Honestly, I think the main thing that hooked me was the in-game cinematics, as they look awesome and radiate that pure 90s anime art style, which I've always been a really big fan of. This collection will be the first time these games have been accessible on modern consoles and PC hardware, which is already a great thing on its own, but the remaster also promises enhanced graphics, audio, and quality of life improvements, which may not be all too exciting, but are to be expected from any modern-day remaster of older games. I'm fairly positive I'll still be busy with Xenoblade Chronicles X's Definitive Edition as my go-to single-player RPG by the time this collection releases, but I do plan to pick it up and try out these games for myself, once I've freed up some time for another RPG or two. I guess it works out though, as I would like to get a physical copy of this collection, which is happening, but for whatever reason isn't available for pre-order, and will only go live for purchases once the game actually releases on the 18th. A weird decision for sure, and hopefully anyone who wants a physical copy will be able to easily get one once the time arrives. LUNAR Remastered Collection will be releasing on Friday, April 18th for PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Rounding out the month of April, the 24th brings with it 3 games I'm interested in, with one of them no doubt being the standout release for the month, so I suppose we'll start with that one. The summer 2024 Xbox Games Showcase strikes back, this time with Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, which was unveiled at that showcase. I remember seeing the reveal at the time, and it really stuck with me, even amongst all the other great games that were present at the showcase. For starters, the premise of the game just sounds awesome. Every year, a godlike being known as the Paintress awakens, and paints a new piece with a corresponding number tied to the artwork, with the number ticking down one by one each year. Anyone in the world whose age matches that number fades away into nothing, and over time, the citizens of the world within the game have tried to band together to stop the Paintress, but to no avail. By the time the events of the game occur, she's gotten to 33, which also just happens to be the expedition team you'll lead in the game. Together with your comrades, you'll explore the lands ravaged by the Paintress and her forces, finding fragments of previous expedition teams, and engaging in turn-based combat along the way, which is honestly really cool to see in a game like this. When I think turn-based RPGs, my mind usually goes towards games that look like this, and not so much, well, this. That's absolutely not a bad thing at all, as I do quite like my super duper anime RPGs. I just think it's refreshing to see a studio do something different than what we're used to with modern day turn-based RPGs, and not only that, inject their own unique twists and ideas into the established formula. While assembling a party and carrying out battles using commands and other tactics is still key here, the developers seemingly sprinkled in some Paper Mario into Expedition 33, with some actions and techniques requiring you to time button presses to get the most out of them, as well as real-time manual aiming for some attacks, and even manual counters and parries being present as well. Between the premise, visuals, and gameplay, this is looking to be one of the most fresh and unique takes on the turn-based RPG formula we've seen in quite some time. It almost feels like this game right here is the new, modern-day turn-based Final Fantasy game that Square just refuses to give us. And I've got to say, for being the debut title for new developer Sandfall Interactive, it looks very impressive gameplay and presentation-wise, and like it'll be loads of fun, so I certainly hope that the game gets all the recognition and success it deserves. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33 will be releasing on Thursday, April 24th, for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. Next up for the 24th, Yasha, Legends of the Demon Blade hits the scene. A fun-looking little action roguelite, Yasha offers up a Hades alternative, if you will, as those games seem like the most apt comparison. Well, probably not on the same level as Hades, or even Hades 2, even in its early access form, Yasha looks to still be a fun, competent game, bringing with it a different setting and mythos compared to Hades, and allows for you to play as one of 3 protagonists, each with their own storylines and playstyles. While each character's storyline does seem rather self-contained, I have to wonder if they'll intertwine in some way. Perhaps the playable protagonists will appear in each other's stories at certain points. Maybe there'll be a 4th storyline containing all 3 of them at once. It should be cool to see what the devs do with the multiple playable characters story-wise, and it's nice to see you'll get some gameplay diversity out of all of them as well, with Shigure providing the standard, fast and flashy approach to combat, Sara being a bit trickier, employing different weapons, tools, and traps, and Taketora being a bit slower, utilizing unarmed melee attacks when enemies get close, but primarily fighting at a range with his bow and arrows. I don't really have a whole lot else to say here, other than that this looks to be a charming, fast, and fun little action game, and like the perfect game for Steam Deck or other handheld PCs, which is where I plan to primarily play it. Yasha, Legends of the Demon Blade will be releasing on Thursday, April 24th for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Wrapping up our April releases, Monster Prom 4, Monster Con opens its doors to the public. I'm always happy to see a new Monster Prom game, as these titles have been a consistently good multiplayer experience ever since the first one released back in 2018. Being a mix of dating sim and visual novel, the Monster Prom games typically task you with trying to get with one of the numerous monster suitors in the games within a set time limit, which you'll attempt to do by completing the various wacky dialogue segments and situations the games put you in. While these games can no doubt be fun on your own, the best way to experience any of the games in the series is to get together with a group of friends, act out and voice the multiple characters within the game yourselves, and try to sabotage your friends and mess with them or steal the monsters they're trying to get with. Almost like a visual novel take on Mario Party or something. There's lots of great, funny writing and characters throughout the whole series, and I'm sure the same will apply with the new game here, this time taking place in and around a convention, seemingly akin to something like Comic-Con, with some new monsters to romantically pursue, alongside a few returning ones from prior entries. It's been quite some time since I've sat down with a group to play any of these games, and I certainly hope I'll be able to get something together for this new game's release, but even if I can't immediately, I'll still pick this one up, as the Monster Prom games are pretty inexpensive and are great to have for any sort of party game night or get-together. And hey, like I said before, they're still quality games and a good time on your own, even if I may prefer to play them in a multiplayer setting. Monster Prom 4, Monster Con will be releasing on Thursday, April 24th, for PC. And that's that for April. Again, a bit of a lighter month compared to February and March, but we've still got some great games in here. Personally, I think Clair Obscur is the clear highlight of the month, but all the other games are bringing with them something unique and special, and given a lot of these games are smaller titles, I'll probably be picking up most of them upon release, even if I may not be able to get to them immediately. I guess I should also give a quick shout out to Bionic Bay here, as while it was initially planned to release back on March 13th, it did see a slight delay to April 17th. Nothing really new to add to what I already said about the game back in my Reds radar for March, but I'm still very much looking forward to it. Also, I've seen some rumors that we may get a release date announcement for an upcoming game that, similar to what I just said about Bionic Bay, I'm very much looking forward to. That being Rataton, the spiritual successor to the Patapon games. It's currently slated to be released sometime this year, but the Kickstarter page for the game states that the estimated delivery date for the game is going to be in April of 2025, so we may even see the game just flat out release, which I will very much accept over just getting a release date announcement, though that would still be nice too, if it's not quite ready for launch yet. And, of course, we can't forget that the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct will be taking place this month, specifically the day after this video goes live. Yeah, you can bet I'll have something out for that once I've been able to see it and gather my thoughts on whatever they end up showing. Whatever it is Nintendo may have for us, I know I'm ready to see it, and to also find out just how much money I'll be throwing at them later this year for the launch. So yeah, between the new game releases for the month, the news and info we may get on other titles, and the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation, it's going to be another great month for games. But, with all that being said, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, I thank you for watching. Your continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated. Hope I was able to entertain, inform, and perhaps interest you in checking out some games you may not have known about for yourself. And last, but certainly not least, as always, I'll see you next time.